They should have said the poet. The poet. They should have said the poet.
Hey, John.
This is Sending Poets, a podcast named after the movie Contact, when Jodie Foster says they should have sent a poet after traveling through the wormhole. My name is John, with me is Bob, and today we're going to talk about Pumpkinheads, which is a screenplay idea that Bob came up with many years ago. Good morning, Bob. Are you there? I know there were some technical difficulties just now, but are you there?
I am here. If you can hear me, can you hear me?
Okay, sweet. Yeah, right on. Okay, cool. So here we are, and I think we're just gonna drive right in. I'm gonna be reading from your website. You did a lot of work organizing things in a way that I think was really easy. The first time I read through it, it flowed really well, and so we thought this would be fun. I'll read through it, and you'll just kind of chime in here and there, and we'll riff on the ideas and everything. And
yeah, it's like
I'm
a
stoked.
work in progress. First draft, let's just call it first draft, is published and out there, and that's what we'll be reading through. And obviously it needs tons of feedback and edits and what have you, but really it's just like a table read of the rough draft.
Nice. All right, so we'll start right away with the concept. So this marks the start of the concept creation for a series of projects based on point of view. So I remember like point of view is kind of the overarching thing, and I guess why don't I keep reading, because I think what I was about to say is right in this next paragraph. Okay, so each series developed around this concept will have a looping property to the narrative. Each episode acts as an iteration through the complete story, punctuated by a key moment viewed through the point of view of one character. Beautiful. I love it. All right, so the Pumpkinhead concept.
Real quick, imagine you have 10 characters. You're going to go through the entire plot in one, you'll have the entire plot line will incrementally get laid out before us, but starts over each episode. So it loops. So you know, the first person would be like 10% of the way, and then the second episode would be another 10% after that. So, but always looping back to the beginning.
Yeah. I love it. All right, so the Pumpkinhead concept. The Pumpkinheads are the baddies of the series. Although not explained in season 1, Pumpkinheads are created via an alien infection of the parasitic variety. It's assumed that astute viewers and readers will be able to piece together the strange occurrence of the meteor shower directly preceding the emergence of the Pumpkinhead sickness and connect the dots. So I like that too. It's like it's one of those things like show. Have you heard people say this, that there's this rule, show, don't tell?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like third act, you're supposed to actually have the guy pop out or something, but like, first act is like, rumor, and second act is the shadow or whatever. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So during the meteor shower, alien parasitic spores are introduced into Earth's atmosphere, and a certain unlucky number of people will become infected. The disease presents as intoxication-like symptoms. The infected first become unable to perform actions requiring fine motor skills, and their judgment is impaired. As a parasitic infection, the intention is not to kill the host immediately, but rather to persuade the host to do all it can to spread the infection to others. And then you mentioned I don't know if I'm going to take a stab at pronouncing this. Leochloridium paradoxum.
Better than I could do it. Better than I
Or
could do it. Good job.
maybe not leucochlor. It's like a parasitic flatworm thing. So there's like a basis of like, here's something in our reality that's similar. Right.
And real quick, the description of this as a callback, this is how we kind of touched on this topic originally, was we were talking about, I think it was a fungal infection to ants that caused them to behave a certain way.
Right.
And I brought up, hey, I have this thing that's just like that. Meaning it's a concept of how to describe, this parasitic control. And in reality, there is this thing that's a flatworm, and it's inside birds. And when the bird poops, a snail will come and eat the bird poop. Disgusting, I know. And then the flatworm eggs go into the digestive system of the snail and turn into like a little creature. And that creature burrows its way up into the brain-ish of a snail and changes its behavior. Instead of, hiding from predators, it climbs to the top of a tree. And then the eye stalks of these things get inhabited by the flatworms themselves, and they make these weird, visible, stripy, pulsating signals. So the snail
for birds,
for birds. Okay, there you go. And so now the bird comes in, eats the snail, and the loop continues.
Yeah.
And once I realized that this is so fascinating, just like you with the ants and the fungus, that they're self-perpetuating the cycle with behavior modification. This is the idea, right? How would it be for humans if we were the ones suffering from some sort of parasitic infection that altered our behavior specifically, like evolutionarily, to spread the thing and work backwards from there? So that's all we're doing. We have a concept of, hey, spreading this parasite, but with humans instead of snails and birds.
Yeah. I love it. And so, the last sentence of that paragraph, thus the pumpkinhead's parasite targets the central nervous system to gain control of the host behavior before progressing to the next stage. And I'm kind of remembering how that the transference, I think it's coming up here. Anyway, okay, so the pumpkinhead's parasite spreads via introduction of a bodily fluid containing pumpkinhead's sporosis. Initially, this fluid is localized in the host digestive tract. Projectile vomiting is the method of transmission.
Oh yeah.
So like, boom, there it is.
There
as
it
the
is.
disease progresses, the host's central nervous system becomes more and more compromised. Eventually, the drunk behavior subsides, and the pumpkinheads can now function typically. As bodily control is restored by the parasite, the host's personality is gradually eroded. It is a continuous trade-off of skeletal muscular control versus higher level cognitive ability. So there is some nightmarish, components in here that like it could be very like, horror, I think, if you wanted it to go that way, or not. But like there's potential there that's like terrifying to me.
Well, this is a mashup of genres. So another aspect of the POV or point of view concept, one is this looping iterative approach to the storytelling narrative, but the other one is a mashup of genre. So it's like a drama with horror. So it's not horror for the sake of like blasting you with blood and gore just for the sake of it. It's horror combined with drama, because the greatest drama comes out when there's the highest cost to be paid.
Yeah.
And so when you have all the chips in the middle, shit gets real. Now, can you believe that you got all the chips in the middle? That's what, that's how good a storyteller you are. I don't know. It depends on how good the story is.
That's the challenge, right? I appreciate. I appreciate the challenge, because I think the horror for horror's sake has its place and stuff. And if you told me like that's where you want to go with this, like that sounds cool too.
No,
for me, like I think I do gravitate towards the that, like you said, the cost and reward and the thing of like drama,
Walking
you know, the
Walking Dead, if you're
humanity thing.
familiar. Are you
Oh
familiar
yeah,
with
oh
Walking?
totally. Oh yeah.
That's
Big fan.
100% that kind of concept
Yeah.
of you would have 90% of it heart-wrenching drama and moments of tenderness, and 10% just unimaginable horror. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
And
I used
it's just
to oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead, please.
Well, I was just gonna say I used to say that show is it could be a zombie show, but it's actually a human show. It's a show about humanity with zombies in it. You
Yep,
know what I mean?
exactly. And it started
You know.
as a graphic novel, I believe. So
Yeah.
there's a whole
Yep.
series. So that was literally my. I think you had a great. When we talked about this offline, you had a great point of view of like it's got to be like this. Like so when you like how good is the idea? Is it something that's like something else? And one of the things is The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
So this would be, what is it like? It would be like The Walking Dead in that
Yeah.
it should be this mashup of drama and intense, horror or graphic, graphic
Yeah.
situations or whatever. And it's going to
Well,
be graphic just in a weird way. I don't think has been used in much film that I've seen. Maybe a little bit. I'm trying to think of some of the zombie movies. I'm sure everything in the zombie genre has been played out, but the ability to be infected via vomit essentially is a disgust level. It's not quite
yeah.
horror. You're not it's like when the zombie bites your forearm and rips the flesh out. You're not going to die right away. It hurts, but it's not the worst. But it's like a bite wound, but to have someone like vomit in your eyes.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, exactly. It's a different thing, man. It's a different kind of thing, but it makes perfect sense from the parasitic side because you want the other person not to be dead. You want the other person to be infected with as much capability of them to further transmit as possible. You don't want to hinder them. And so this way of, it's not blood, it's digestive content that is, I think it's disgusting, obviously, but it's meant to be disgusting, but it's a little bit different. It's a
Different.
small difference from the traditional zombie genre.
Yeah. It's how that Save the Cat book describes it. I mean, that's a tactic that's very successful in screenplay writing is to in a sense of like pitching it is like saying it that way, framing it that way. It's like this, but different.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to get to. Save the Cat. That's exactly right. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. It's really cool. Really, really cool. Okay, cool. So the Pumpkinhead's parasite is quite caustic in nature. As the brain is fully taken over by the parasite, the host's head begins a transformation. Structures like subcutaneous tissue, bone, muscle begin to change, and the cranium enlarges. The skin changes color from its initial appearance to a pumpkin orange color at the height of the infection. The massively enlarged head and face, plus the orange color, are characteristics that earn those infected with this alien parasite the Pumpkinhead moniker. So there you go. Very nice. All right. I like how you
Which
said
is
this.
maybe a little different than most zombie films in that they're not going to be a living dead. They're a living creature, but parasitically controlled and with the head of just imagine what a, CGI or graphic artist could do with, making a giant. It's not literally a pumpkin, obviously.
Yeah, it's not going to be a jack-o'-lantern head, but
no, it's not going to be not a literal jack-o'-lantern. But that would be like. So when they talk about the Walking Dead, they call them walkers.
Yeah.
So these are like the pumpkin heads. This is just what if you were to have a disaster like of the epic biblical proportion of this is the end of times. I think you would have a name for the thing. Like people would
come up with it. Yeah, totally.
People would come up with just like the walkers. Everybody's like because they would have different names. By the way, some different groups would have different names.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And so you'd have your own metaphorical compression of this terrible thing that's ended all of humanity essentially. So we would call them pumpkin heads, and that's what it's gonna. At this point, that's what it's called.
Yeah. Awesome. Next section here. If it bleeds, we can kill it. The classic headshot is a bad idea with these creatures. Any release of the contents of the host's head may spread the disease. If any comes in prolonged contact with the skin. If one were to bash the skull of a pumpkinhead with a baseball bat, its head would explode and the infectious contents would spray out in a fairly large blast radius. Anyone unfortunate enough to have this substance land on their skin would have just moments before it would begin eating away at the contacted flesh and cause a pumpkinhead's infection. Sores, chemical burns, and lesions would be readily apparent, and the more fluid one is exposed to, the quicker their infection would progress. Again, nightmarish for me.
It's also a callback specifically to how those fungal infections spread in like ant colonies, where they'll literally like pop, and all the little the little fungal things that when they come back into their colony, like their underground colony, these little ants will like explode, right, and spread the fungal spores. And that's the concept of this, is when it gets to the end stage, you can't just kill it at no cost. Like in the zombie movies, in the Walking Dead, you would bash it in the head with a baseball bat or whatever, right, and then keep on going. And this one, if you were to bash it in the head, it's so the game theory is that these creatures, alien, whatever, the thing is, it's anticipating that to kill it, you have to destroy its head. And so it's put its mechanism of dispersal in the head. Yeah. Right? So that killing it is what it's trying to get you to do at that stage. Because its body's like this, essentially, real high level. This is very important. And I'll take a second on this. In the beginning of the infection, the brain is still operational as a human. I mean, it's got the cognitive hardware to still perform thoughts and to be, deceptive and to use guile and lies and try to trick people. But the body is weak. So in the very beginning of the infection cycle, the body, you start to be like drunk, and then your body, it's almost like you're really sick, like you have the flu and you can't get out of bed. But you can use your brain. Now, you're not you anymore. You're starting to lose your grip. So you're going to like use subterfuge or use trickiness when you're first infected and try to hide these things and spread it by, the vomiting. But then as it progresses, your body gets strong again. But your brain now, the infection goes to your brain, and your brain is now taken over by this infection that, creates the pumpkin head. And so you lose your ability to be tricky and think about, things and make a plan. Now you're a more traditional zombie, meaning like brainless, but your body works. Now you're strong again, and you can run and attack, and you're ferocious. Yeah, so it has like a pattern to it. So I just want to lay that out.
And that might be the next paragraph here too, a little bit more into that. It says, it's important to hammer home a key point about how this infection progresses within the host. First, the infected host is relatively weak and physically incapacitated. But even at this point, I'll just start saying pH because that's how you wrote it. The pH is extremely dangerous. The parasite plays on the host's intelligence and personality traits to lure, deceive, and trap and infect unsuspecting potential new hosts. Unlike the mindless zombies we're also familiar with, the early stage pH is a devious psychopathic monster. True evil intent can be seen in the pH's infected mind, with hatred and malevolence guiding its action, and deception, lies, and subterfuge to help hyasnate her. Yeah. So that was a beautiful, like, you'd riff that off of your head. Here's just like the words. I love it.
Me. I think I have it queued up somewhere subconsciously. All this stuff is in there. I haven't looked at this in quite a while, though. It's funny to hear it.
It's great. I love it. I love that we're like doing an episode like this. Well, and you've got a lot written here. Like, we'll probably do multiple episodes, I don't know if we'll get through all of it in one, because there's a lot. You've done a lot of work on this.
No rush. But it's like triggering me as it goes. But it's like listening to somebody else wrote it. That's why it sounds good. It's one of those things.
Yeah. All right. So imagine an attractive female in the early stages of the pH infection. Can she overpower a potential new host male? No, but she can seduce one or play a victim and garner sympathy, or trick one into a compromising position before springing her trap and passing along the infection. An old man who has fallen and needs your help, well, just as you bend down to lend a hand, the pH grabs you by the collar and pulls his face close to yours and spews vile black bile right into your eyes, nose, and mouth. How about an infected loved one? Would you not rush to your child's side if she called out to you in need? Would you not eagerly allow her to hug you tight and pull you in close? Of course you would. Yeah. So the human, nature, the risk thing is, it's
And
nightmarish.
I don't think any zombie movie has yet to play with this aspect of it, where
Yeah.
there's intentional malice and intentional, evil forethought, planning, a concept of scheming, and this thing has a devious intent. I don't think any zombie movies have that. They're all brainless swarm of
Right.
tactics, brain, I just want to eat
Yeah,
you.
right. They just need to eat the flesh or whatever, and that's
so
it.
so monotone. Yeah, so monotone.
Mm.
This, I think, it's like this but different. So it's like the zombie flick, but the difference is the progression from someone who's cold-bloodedly or even hot-bloodedly, but somewhere intentionally trying to manipulate or deceive or use some kind of brain power, but not physicality. That's the key. There's like a transition between the physical overpowering and the point of being tricked by somebody.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie Species? It's like from the 90s, I think.
Sounds very familiar. There's a female who's really, who is she? I'm trying to remember. She's like a supermodel or something.
Yeah, Natasha Henstridge, maybe?
Something like that, yeah.
Mind. But I think it's definitely not the same thing, but the similar thing with this, she's a female and she's seducing, the male thing. So that one, kind of
manipulation. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's 100% John. Yeah, that's a manipulative movie with intent. So you're right. I think that's like that more than a zombie, but it's a mashup of those two. That's exactly it.
Yeah. And what I love about the last sentence, the last couple sentences about, how about an infected loved one, or your child's side, there's a heartbreaking thing there that that's new. I think, there's an angle there that I can kind of see a scene playing out that's just devastating with as a viewer recognizing the malice from a child, from to their parent, and
but how easy it would be. So on an evolutionary progress, that's exactly what would happen. Meaning it's like how terrible for the flatworm to go into the eye stalk of the creature and bobble up and down. That's just the worst thing ever. You know what I mean? It's that's what I'm talking about.
Heebie-jeebies, man.
The heebie-jeebies, man. It's nature, this was, I can't remember whose proof it was. Someone's proof against God, the God, was the cruelty of parasitic life on Earth. I'm not kidding you. I can't remember who a theologian or somebody had to refute.
Wow.
How do you get away with so much unimaginable suffering if you are the infected creature on some of these cycles of parasite and host? The host creature lives the most unimaginably torturous existence you could possibly imagine. It's literally the worst thing. You couldn't even do as bad a thing as this thing does. And they've evolved to do. Anyway, the point is, cruelty is inherent in nature. We are the cruel ones. We don't realize how cruel nature can be because there's nothing above us. Yeah. So the wake up call of, you're not always, or we haven't always been the top of the food chain, so to speak. This is kind of like the wake up moment. What do you do when you start losing? You won every game for so long you even forgot what it means to lose, and now all of a sudden you're taking big losses. So big wake up call. This is the drama side. What do you do when you start losing now?
Yeah. Chills, man. Okay, so as the parasitic infection rages, the creature's malevolence does so as well, growing in strength and speed, and the full-blown pH may outrun you or outclimb you, chase you down with seemingly never-ending stamina. The parasite knows that the host body is nearing exhaustion and will pass away soon. All resources are dumped into infecting another person and another until the host is essentially worked to death. As a final kamikaze gambit, the PH will explode its own head with a tremendous detonation as the internal cranial pressure becomes too great. Anyone in the general vicinity would be covered in infectious goo.
Yeah, so they don't even have a way to die peacefully. Like even if they're at the end of their life, instead of just like falling to pieces like a zombie would, or whatever, disintegrating, they
Yeah.
blow up. Their head essentially does the ant thing where it explodes at the last minute and tries to cover everything in the surrounding areas with new pumpkin head spores.
Yeah, like a time bomb.
It's like a time bomb. Yeah, totally. It's exactly a time bomb.
All right. So that is the concept entry. And the next one is cast. Oh, yeah. We want to go into, I mean, I'm kind of just going in chronological order. Is that cool?
Yes,
Because I
please.
think
That's
this is
exactly
like,
right.
again, a whole bunch of just great work that you've done here, just documenting it. So
Thank
the
you.
cast. So, and we kind of talked about this before too. I mean, this is just like one particular event, right? But this is the concept is like, well, man, there's like so many events that could be, if this ended up being so like a series or whatever it was, like this is just one event. But you can see how like many events, the storytelling possibilities are endless is what I'm trying to get to. So
Well, it
anyway,
is somewhat of a unique way to tell a story. I don't think it's completely original, but I think it's almost like when you watch Pulp Fiction for the first time and you realize I don't have
mm,
to tell the story linearly.
yeah,
And I know that, obviously Pulp Fiction wasn't the first movie to ever do that, but you know what I'm
mm,
getting at is Tarantino's
right,
delinear, delineating the movie makes it a totally different movie. It's just
yeah,
a feel. And so this is a change up again in that we're still going beginning to end, but you go beginning to like the first 10%, and then you have to reset back to the beginning again. And then the second time, you're going to see that first
yeah,
event, but from another
from
person's
some,
point of
yeah,
view.
yeah,
And then a third time, you reset again, and now but you're skipping ahead. You don't replay exactly every moment. What I'm getting
yeah,
at is, and we'll read through and it'll be more clear, but this is a complicated concept that is not revealed intuitively in the thing. You're going to start to see it happen and learn what is happening in the moment for the first time ever. And I think that's going to be a very shocking way to tell a story, just like the Tarantino, cut it up and mash it up style was.
right, yeah, awesome. All right, so first in the cast here, Dad, age 45 to 50. By the way, I do like the generic, like you haven't named them yet. So yeah, that I like that it's
I
generic
think
here.
there's,
So
yeah, yeah. In this case, at this point, you're right, exactly.
yeah. So age 45 to 50, profession Bering Sea crab fisherman. Dad is a commercial Bering Sea crab fisherman, mid to late 40s, tough as nails with the scars and calluses to prove it, rough in appearance with the working class style of Alaska Pacific Northwest, gruff exterior but with a big heart. This is a man who could outdrink, outfight, and outwork the majority of men his age and most men 20 years his junior. He would kill and die for his family and friends, financially successful, relatively speaking, but at a cost. He has to be long separated from his family in order to work the Bering Sea. Upon his return from the various crabbing seasons, his energy is spent. This boom bust cycling, where he's literally gone for months at a time and then home 24/7, takes a toll on the family dynamic. Outside appearances would indicate the perfect family and a man living the American dream. Still, if one were to scratch the surface deeply enough, one would find cracks and fissures, exposing trouble between dad and mom and dad's relationship to his eldest son. So, yeah, uh, it's just, I really love like the description and like you're really setting this up as like who the who the character is. And well, I'm going to keep reading here because the
Real
actual
quick,
scene.
just real quick. One thing is, if everybody's familiar, this is like Deadliest Catch. So I don't know if you remember that TV show.
Yeah, I
Reality.
remember was talking about it too. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So just it's like that. Is
like
imagine
that.
like one of these Deadliest Catch guys, but off season. Like just think about what their family life is like when they get home.
Yeah.
after doing these crazy, months long,
Yeah.
very hard, intense, workloads, etc. So you get the picture now. It's Deadly
Yeah.
Catch style.
And it doesn't sound like he's I mean, he sounds like a great dad, and right, like he's not like an abusive, like alcoholic uh asshole, right? I mean,
He's
he's doing his
intentionally
best, like
pure.
with
He's intentionally
yeah,
pure, but flawed like all of us. But
yeah,
just like in his big benefits, meaning his big character positives, are offset by probably explosive negatives, and the not
yeah,
not really not, the boom bust, I think, is the best way to put it.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
probably
like
just not there for 6 months. You're just not
yeah,
there. It's just that's a hardship I can't even imagine.
right.
And,
But yeah, like I
and
think you said it, like intentionally pure, like he's still like he's a good guy, right? He's not
100% a
an
good guy.
asshole.
100% a
Yeah,
good guy. Not an asshole.
yeah,
No, not an
yeah.
asshole.
Cool,
Working
cool, cool.
hard to try to make a family, but flawed, terribly flawed. This is, by the way, I think that's more normal than abnormal, meaning the reality is everybody's like this. Everybody wears a mask. Everybody
Mm.
has a outwardly facing Instagram life. And then literally, John, everybody, and I'm not accusing anybody, but literally everybody's home life is
Yeah,
not at all like if you could see the 10 worst moments of someone's relationship with someone else, just edited all together, you would think everybody's a monster.
yeah,
I'm serious. If you
right.
take the 10 worst moments of a 20-year marriage and
Yeah,
you just cut them all together in tandem, and you just put it on a reel and make everybody watch it, you would
yeah.
think.
It's not gonna look great. It's not gonna look great at all.
But for everybody, so my point is, it's for
Yeah,
everybody is like that. Everybody, even the ones that we all think, oh, they have the best marriage, them too. It's
yeah,
everybody. It's everybody had no accusations, but I think everybody has these moments of weakness that if we're honest, if we're going to really be honest and really look, I think this is what I'm getting at. Is the drama is about looking at the honest projection, not the superficial,
yeah,
shiny projection. That's not the truth. It's nice to
yeah,
have, and everybody has to do it. It's compelling, social order and status and whatever.
yeah,
But the reality is, fart jokes are always funny because every human has to fart.
yeah,
It's like the stupidest stuff. The dick jokes are
yeah,
always funny. Because they're part of our body. It's like it's always going to be there.
yeah,
It's etc. So to think about this show, it's about like that gritty honesty. So drama is gritty honesty, and then punctuated by life or death choices.
yeah. Wow, man. I don't know if it was that moment that the projectionist threw a thing at me, but I think I picked up on something there that I don't know if it's I think it's a flavor of this. Maybe it's exactly this. But the
Hmm.
way you described, if you took, I just think there's a lot of potential in this idea. Like if you the way you said, like if you take like the 10 worst moments of someone's life and just out of context and just do that, oh man, that kind of just like blew my mind about like the potential for some kind of storytelling around that 5 or 10
Interesting.
moments of like so anyway like yeah I think that was
I
a thing, man. I think my
okay.
projectionist like gave me a slide and I was like he was
Well,
just like
let's
say
keep
something
that.
about this.
Yeah, no. Put that on the master notes list. That's an interesting way to go, because I think the key part that I didn't mention that I implied but you distinctively mentioned was out of context. That's what it's
Yeah,
about. And obviously when you
yeah,
string them all together they're
yeah,
out of context, but that's the key, is to show a person's totality on 5 or 10 snippets of the worst moments ever of their relationship. By the way, we all have them. This is my point. And I'm not saying that there's not loving relationships. Like I would literally kill and die for my family in a heartbeat. Without hesitation. This is
yeah,
an absolute reflection of my love for them. And I mean that literally, like without hesitation, I would run into the building to rescue my children and my wife without hesitation. But if
yeah.
I showed you the 10 worst moments of my relationship with her, John, you you would think we
Sure.
would just the worst people, that we would hate each other and
Yeah,
all the rest. And
right.
so that's what I'm getting at. And I see that you see this.
Yeah.
And so that's the context is the difference maker. Because if I were then to contextualize those 10 amongst the 10 million times of we bonded in a team way, showing our love for each other, it would be washed away. It would be like, tears in the ocean. It would mean nothing. Those 10 in context would mean nothing.
Yeah.
And it all is
Right.
explained. Yeah. It's all explained. Yes, of course he would run into the building. Of course he would. Even though he's a monster. Because he's a monster, he does it. That's why. He's human like that. And so we're all human like that. Yeah, we're all human like that. It's a really let's I'm glad you put that. I'm glad you identified that as beautiful. That's observing beauty, by the way. Everybody listening, if there's anybody listening.
Yeah.
This is what the podcast is about. Seeing the beautiful thing is what the poets do. And then they make up the words to explain it and share it with everybody else, to share that feeling. But you got to see it first. You got to see the beauty. And so thank you, John. That's amazing.
Thank you.
I like it.
All right. All right. So the POV scene with the dad. So dad will be the first of the family to fall to Pumpkinhead's, like, heartbreaking. He's the guy. He's like the strong, and he's gonna be the first. It's like already like
Game
devastating
of Thrones.
and like
Game of Thrones. When the first day or whatever is it Game of Thrones? Who's the one where they chop off the guy's head like the very first episode?
Ned Stark, right?
Thank you, Ned Stark. Exactly, the guy from who's a major guy from Lord of the Rings. You're like
Boromir. Sean Bean. Sean Bean. Yeah.
This guy's gonna be the guy, and this is the guy for the whole show. And then guess what? Done. He's gone, just like that. That's
right.
But you know what? When you really think about it, that's how it works. The best of us die first. The one who is built to go out and be the hero dies first.
Right.
I can't remember. I think it's a. I'm
were you
trying
going to
to remember.
say?
It's a song.
You're going to say the song? Yeah, Billy Joel, right? Only the good die young, isn't it?
That is true. That wasn't the one I was going to go with. It is a Billy Joel, Only the Good Die Young. But I was thinking of it's I think Leonard Cohen. And it's it's a spooky one. It's about like being on the battlefield and it's like this French foreign fighter behind the lines. And I don't know, I have to look it up. This Leonard Cohen song about being like a fighter behind the lines, or not. But anyway, you're like your family dies and you're on the. Anyway, it's like all the good people die is the point. Everybody who tries to help, they die. All the ones that are out there trying to be the hero, they die. Like, this is what happens in a real war, is all the people who stand up, they get killed.
Yeah,
it's like everybody who runs. Yeah, it's fucked up, dude. But the reality is, when the shit goes really bad, the people who run away, even though it's not portrayed in media like this, culture, but those are the ones who probably will survive. So anyway, we're setting the table of a reality base. This is about evolution. This is the gnarliness of reality. Okay, please.
Right. I know that was the first sentence in the scene, and it's already just like invested. You know what I mean? There's like, there's going to be like really good storytelling in this. All right. So he'll go out to investigate and defend the family before a full understanding of the threat is known. Again, because that's what he's going to do, right? A brutal and traumatic scene will set the tone for the remainder of the series. Additionally, as the first scene, this will be revisited the most number of times by the remaining characters as they progress through their POV episodes. Yeah, fucking awesome way to start it. I mean, like, there's like cliffhanger potential. There's just like, wow, yeah.
With the storytelling in a looped fashion, this is where it kind of sidesteps the fact that the quote unquote main character dies in the very beginning, is that you're going to get this beginning part the most number of times.
Yeah.
So it's like when you learn to play chess, you probably naturally learn your opening the best because you practice your opening way more than your end game, just by the nature of, how the games progress. Yeah. So we're going to get so much information on this first character, but he only has this very short amount of length of arc in the actual literal sense of the story that's being told, literally.
And do you think, like, I can't remember if you've written it this way, we'll find out here, because I just can't remember. But like, do you think there's potential for like, because he's such like kind of the hero character, do you think other characters will have sort of like flashbacks,
Yes.
of like
Yes.
lessons learned of, or throughout their life,
Exactly.
right? And
Exactly.
even
Yes.
though he like, doesn't make it past episode 1 or whatever, right? Like he's the first to go.
Correct.
Like he still has a
There's a
presence
lot.
throughout the whole thing, right?
Yeah, it doesn't start with his death. So I am setting it up as a character. This is his moment, because part of the POV concept is each episode, one of the characters will die. And so this is not really, explicitly stated. It's like you recognize as the pattern unfolds that every episode we go a little bit further along the narrative absolute journey, but we start at the beginning every time. And so we're going to go past these same mile markers over and over and over. Every episode we go a little bit further and a character dies. And so he's the first one to go. But to your point, as every other character now goes through this beginning part, they're going to have times to have interactions with him, because it starts, there's a considerable amount of time in that first episode that he is the character. And it's just like, you think he's going to be the guy.
Yeah.
He seems like the main character. What are the main characters?
Yep.
He and the wife are the main characters, really.
Yep.
But
I love it.
not really, because in the very first episode, so now you get the rug pull at the end of the first episode, you think this guy's gone. But by the second episode, it all resets. You're playing chess again from the first move all over again.
Yeah.
So he's the opening like that.
Yeah. It's beautiful. All right, next character is Mom, age 40 to 45, profession stay-at-home mom. Mom is the wife of a commercial fisherman and a stay-at-home mom. She has raised 4 children and managed a beautiful home on the cliffs of Whidbey Island. Is this what you mentioned, like, before we started, where should I look at this? I'm going to open this
So
link
if
in a
you
new
want to
tab.
look up Whidbey
Whidbey
Island.
Oh, yeah, in
real,
Washington.
It's a real place.
Yeah.
And I've spent many years in Western Washington, Seattle area. My mother lives nearby. She's not on Whidbey Island, but she lives nearby.
Yeah.
It's a place that I went to many times as a kid. So it's a place that I have a very intense, imagination imagery that I can pull upon, like the terrain, the way it looks standing in it, the way it looks looking at it, certain features that we'll get into, certain bridges, etc.
Yeah.
So it is a location of importance because of its island status as well. Because this is going to happen. Imagine the entire world is being infected, but you have this one microcosm of this one island, which is a pretty big island, by the way. It's not a tiny island. It's got a military base on it, and it's a giant island. But imagine if you cleared out this island, you kind of have you can kind of clear an island. It's literally possible. You can't clear the continent, right? You couldn't clear Europe into Asia and all the rest. Like if you're on a mainland body of, it's over. Like these pumpkinheads are going to take over everything. So this is like a tiny little, what if, could they even survive on one island? So this is just the bare, like the fingernails of humanity scraping on the cliffside. Because everything else is lost.
Wait. I gotta write that down. The fingernails of, because that's
humanity.
the part. I don't know if that's like a haiku, but like the fingernails. I have to write it down, dude. I have to. Fingernails
humanity.
Of humanity's, what was it?
Scraping on the cliff side of something.
I know,
on the edge of the cliff or something like that. We can go back and listen, obviously. But,
I love it.
So we're at the very edge is the point. And let me do a call out to there's a book by Kurt Vonnegut called Galapagos. And it plays on the same concept of a terrible worldwide calamity. And the only people who survive are this couple families or scientists or tourists, like a small group, a very relatively small group of people that happen to be visiting the Galapagos at that time. And like literally everything else in the whole wide world is gone because of calamity. I think it was disease or something. So I think it's a very interesting concept of both the drama of the moment of how you would act and the downstream effect, the bottleneck effect of genetics. That's one of the cool things that Vonnegut gets into. We could get into that at a further season.
Yeah.
Listen,
Wow.
I don't want to sidetrack, but when you compress everything down, you know what I mean by a genetic bottleneck, right?
I think so.
So collapse a population to a very small number of individuals, then they can rebuild, but that rebuilding could be drastically shifted depending upon, because if those small number of individuals have a bunch of recessive traits, something weird, like why are they the only ones that survived? Something weird like that. That would pass on as the mainstay, the mainstream then, and everything would build off of that. And so this is how evolution makes these big jumps and leaps. Usually it's not a slow, gradual process. Usually it's a process of stability and then a massive disaster with a bottleneck. And then everything, like a few survivors then repopulate everything. And that's how evolution typically works. So this is also calling heavily upon, this evolutionary theory of humans or animals. We have to understand what the pressures of true evolution mean to our circumstance. Like we might go through some evolutionary process where we get bottlenecked again. This is what this means.
Wow. Well, I love it.
Big stakes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh God, I'm telling you, like endless possibilities, and like awesome job with the, I hear this all the time, like write what you know. So like the location is anchored in like something you know a lot about, like so.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's good. Good point. I didn't even think about that, but you're absolutely right.
No shit.
That's what
yeah.
It just happens that way. When you think in your mind of a place, it's like you got to kind of call upon a place you might know, I guess.
Yeah. I think it makes a difference, I really do. So, yeah.
Well, it's real to me. I hopefully it could become real to an audience, but it's real to me as far as the location. That's 100% correct.
Yeah. All right. So she is a supermom by all rights, maintaining her household without support other than financial from her husband for much of the year as he is away working. Upon Dad's return, she has to switch gears and relinquish control, a bitter pill for her to swallow, to the man of the house. Dynamic. Interesting. Yes. This is not to say she isn't madly in love with her husband and in love with her life, but the cycling of all or nothing regarding his parenting contributions and input in family matters does inject a great deal of stress in the relationship. Additionally, with his very dangerous occupation, she has a constant dread he'll be injured or killed on the job. Mom's relationship with the kids is great. She supports each according to their own needs and loves them all unconditionally. Yeah, super mom, love that. She is also a fierce protector, mama grizzly, and would do anything to defend her babies. Her only source of tension is with the twin girls as they are teenagers and going through the normal pangs of puberty and various forms of mother-daughter rebellion. Yeah, again, like, relatable is like the word that comes to me. Maybe not in like the specific sense of the word, but just like fierce protector mother, right? Like I think that's like again that it's this family is like they have problems. They're humans. They have struggles.
But I don't think
but they're like hero parents, kind of,
Well, I don't think they have. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. Is this is the norm? It's just not spoken of. That the people that are the ones that seem like this, that the norm is they all have extremely deep-seated problems. Even though they look completely normal or above average or idealistic, probably idealistic. The concept of an ideal is just not actualized. It's not realistic. It's just not real. It's a make-believe thing. It's okay to have that as your objective function. I think we should have that as our objective function. But the reality of the we all have moments, like being trapped in the moment. That's what I'm getting at. And to disregard the impact of the accumulation of moments is disingenuous. And to get real means, like, go back to Walking Dead. Okay, they thought the guy was dead in the first season. They thought he was dead. They did things. They thought things. Then they had to backtrack on that. And everybody knows something happened. And everybody knew it was so fucked up Like the whole thing was fucked up. The world was fucked up, and they did shit, but they didn't know everything that they did. Like it was just impossible. They got put into an impossible situation, but they knew eventually that was going to come out in the wash, and it does, right? Rick has to kill that guy eventually. It took a while, and it wasn't directly because he hooked up with his wife and all the rest. I mean, he saved his wife and his kids' lives. But he also, right? It was just such a weird thing. It was just like an impossible thing, is my point. When they put Rick and they put that family into an impossible situation where they thought he was dead, and you do things, and then you realize it's not the truth, and you have to reblend the model with the updated weights, it's fucked up. And that's what I'm getting at. That's the real part of life. So this mom is a super mom. But there's going to be things that are going to happen that are going to be terrible things, and you know what I'm talking about already, I'm sure, because you've read ahead. But one last little point I want to throw on this point after Mom and Dad. It is a time period piece. So this is a 90s piece, okay? And I can't stress that enough. It's going to be it wasn't covered at this point of the journey, but I do want to conceptualize, because it's going to be a really important part of culturally time stamping this thing. Okay. It's going to be back at, and right now it's so weird because I wrote this idea about this probably 7-8 years ago, and it was still a 90s piece then, but now it seems like the 90s was a long time ago. So I just want to reiterate, we're talking 30 years now. It's probably a 30-year-old concept. So it's about the right time when the 90s will become cool again, or people will be interested in because music's going to be very important, dress, the concept of a lifestyle that doesn't, this is pre 9/11 for all the kids out there who don't understand what I'm saying. This is before 9/11. This is a different America. This is a different world. This is so important to understand. This is a completely artificial concept. It's going to feel like a time travel.
The setting the time, I'm glad you said all that, because setting the time, it is super important. I mean, maybe there's like a fringe type of storytelling that you can get away with not, but like it's so important, I think, in most cases, because again, the reality today is like internet, cell phones,
exactly,
immediate,
John, 100%.
and you're saying like that's not the world, right? People did that. That's not what's going on in this time. It's the 90s.
And we're using that as a device to isolate. This is all about the lack of modern awareness. You hit it 100% out of the park. So no cell phones, no social media. There's no expectation of like everything's nerfed and super soft at this point. Like there's hardship out there. People are really, I mean, by the way, 90s is not that long ago. Holy cow. I mean, obviously, it's my high school years of the 90s. This is exactly what do what you know. So that's why I'm doing the 90s. But looking back at it is a different generational feeling, I think, at this point, which is nice because it puts it different from us. It's not about, this is not at all anything having to do with modern society, meaning it's not it's not supposed to be a time critique. It's supposed to be about humanity. It's the universal thing of humanity. It's not a critique on a generational time period of culture. It's not a cultural critique. It is just a way to offset so we're not in our culture and moment and politics and everything of today. It's not about that.
Right. Awesome. All right, I'm going to read the POV scene for the mom. Just a couple sentences here, but it's brutal. Spoiler alert, it's brutal. Okay. After her miraculous rescue at the 11th hour, right after she kills her baby to prevent him from falling to the horror of a pumpkinhead attack, she suffers through shock and remorse and the absolute worst psychological pain and torment imaginable. The grief is so overwhelming, she takes her own life. Brutal.
So little bit of context, just 30 seconds. She's trapped with her youngest. She feels like this is the end because the Pumpkinheads are about to break in through their stronghold in the closet, as it were, last place, the keep of the castle, and she has a gun. She's not going to let her baby be tortured by these Pumpkinheads and turn into a Pumpkinhead. This is like the thing with the zombies. You wouldn't let your friend become a zombie, right? You'd say, do me first, right? but it's your
Yeah.
own kid. So imagine, and not
Yeah.
only your own kid, but your youngest kid. And so she does the unthinkable. And then, unfortunately, well, yes, I can't say unfortunate. This goes back to the point exactly of like the Rick thing where you would never know this would happen, but she gets rescued. Like if she would not have done this thing, if she would have let them just burst through the door, they wouldn't have actually got her because she's rescued at the very last second.
Yeah.
So the horror is she
Oof.
prevented what was going to be a terrible thing, but she was rescued at the very last second, so she didn't. She just was put into an impossible solution or an impossible predicament, and the torment of that. So she's the one character who doesn't die from the Pumpkinheads. Well, no,
Yeah.
the second one is the kid that
Well,
she kills, obviously, but
yeah. Yeah.
that is kind of the twist. You think every single scene is going to be a Pumpkinhead killing somebody, and then you get to this point of the story where, big spoiler, double spoiler, you don't know at the end of the scene. So everybody has a scene, meaning everybody has an episode and a scene of their death, and this is the kid's scene, but you don't know at that point how the kid
Yeah.
dies because
Yeah.
she's not going to tell the kid, I'm going to kill you now.
Right.
She does it without him knowing so that it's a peaceful death. He just goes blank. So the end
Yeah.
of his episode, because look, at the same time, I have kids, you have kids. So
Yeah.
look, I can't do things to kids. I mean, even in my imagination, it's so abhorrent to me. So he just goes
Yeah.
out. It just goes black.
Yeah.
And then you
Gnarly.
realize when it's, totally gnarly. When you realize it's her episode, then you see, so you don't even know the horror of what has happened at the end of that episode. You know, because the dynamic thing is at that point, one of the two is probably going to die at that moment, if not both. What's going to happen next? And then the kid dies, okay, but it all goes blank. And then you don't find out the answer until later.
Till her episode, maybe, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think hers is
Yeah.
the next one because she does commit suicide that next episode. But you don't get to that point until she catches up.
Yeah.
Like, so then we start, so back again to the concept. So maybe she's like the 50% of the way through. So now her episode, you're going to have to catch up 50% of the way through the whole narrative to get to that point where she just can't deal with it anymore. And by the way, how many of us would opt out if the Armageddon actually happened? I think a significant number would opt out in reality.
Yeah. 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 Probably. Right.
I think so. If it was like literally like a comet's going to hit the Earth or whatever, like something that's just unavoidable, disastrous. I think there's like a super volcano, Yellowstone's about to explode, right? We're all going to die.
Oh, right.
Like this
Yeah.
100-kilometer wide caldera is going to erupt for 1,000 years and put 30 feet of granite on the surface of this continent, and everything on the Earth will choke to death, etc. I don't want to be the one starving to death. I'm going to opt out today. Peace out, all. Like I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm just going to be quick, and I'm just going to opt out. And so I think that's a reality we have to deal with in the catastrophe scenario. So to make it real, where not everybody's running from the baddies every time, you have to realize some people are just going to break and they're going to lose their will. They're going to make a mistake. They're going to cross the Rubicon and never be able to come back. And that is a real thing in humanity. I've been there personally, very close, where you feel like, hey, if I would have just gone a little bit further, I wouldn't have died that minute, but I would have done something that I can't undo, and it would have reverberated. Wow. Yeah, it's fucked up, but I think that's a reality to tell of the story. So mom is really important. She's going to take the biggest emotional hit out of any character, and it's going to crush her eventually.
Yeah. Oof, heavy.
Very heavy.
Yeah. All right, next character, the oldest son, age 19 to 22. So you're saying like college dropout, question mark, loner, question mark, fat, ugly kid, maybe, neckbeard, maybe, right? Like, sounds like you don't have a clear picture, but he's kind of, what I'm getting is like maybe outcast. And you even said like, doesn't look like he would be the quote hero character. So
basement dweller. Bad hygiene, right? Bad hygiene.
Yeah.
Doesn't brush his teeth, doesn't take a shower, doesn't cut his hair, isolated, lives in his own dream world. never does well, all these things. That's disappointment.
Mm. And
So
he's the
someone
oldest
who,
son. Yeah,
he's
gnarly.
the oldest son, yeah.
So, oldest son is the classic ne'er-do-well. Once asked at a family and friends gathering what his occupation was, he flatly responded, "Disappointing people." Aw. I don't mean to laugh,
Yeah.
but anyway, he has the genes of his
Yeah.
alpha father and heavy expectations weighing on his broad shoulders, but his existential angst prevents him from adequately shouldering the weight. Yeah, again, the depth and dynamic. That's possibilities for storytelling. It's like,
Mm.
well done, dude. I feel like
Thank you
there's a
so
lot
much. I
there.
appreciate that because I
Yeah,
used few words, but tried to really give you an
yeah,
image of you can see this kid. I think you can see this kid
yeah,
like
totally.
a grungy, and I mean that like band, like a grunge
Yeah,
kind of '90s kind of feel with
yeah,
the sad plaid on and like
right.
just mopey.
And the heavy expectations, like his
Mm.
dad's, financially successful or whatever, and like this expectation, like, are you gonna follow in your dad's footsteps and do the
But here's
thing?
the
And he's
thing.
probably
But
like,
here's the
no,
thing.
I'm
The
not gonna
kid
do that. I
knows.
don't want to do that.
Well, the kid knows the truth, which is when dad comes home, everything goes to shit. Because now there's this
Mm,
explosive combination. It's one thing when dad's out and mom's in control because you just have one person. How many
yeah.
drivers does a buggy have? It has one. You can't have two drivers on a buggy. So
Mm,
you get this tension of, mom's the driver. And by the way, that's Mulholland Drive callback. I don't know if you're a big David Lynch fan, but Mulholland Drive.
I, I
Very.
I I missed the buggy reference, but I definitely love that movie. It's one I gotta like watch
So
every so
the
often because
cowboy
it's so
guy,
so trippy.
the cowboy guy asked the producer to come meet him at the lot, like the corral. He's,
Mm,
if you see me one more time, you've done well. If you see me two more times, you've done poorly. The guy who's
mm.
really in control, he says, I'm talking about the producer who walks into his house, his wife's banging the painter.
Yeah, I think so. God, man, it's been a
He,
while
t-
since
he
I've seen
takes
it.
he takes the paint and he pours it all over, pink paint, pours it all over her jewelry. She freaks out. I think the painter is he's that country music star or something like that. It's hilarious. The guy gets back in his Porsche and he drives out. He goes to the crazy dump motel. He gets the phone call. You got to go meet the cowboy. Anyway, you watch it
Mm.
again. It'll blow
Yeah,
your
I
mind.
got you, man.
He meets the cowboy. The cowboy starts with, "How many drivers does a buggy have?" And the guy has to say one. It's like, okay, are you the driver or am I the driver? The point is, when you're on a buggy, there's only one driver. And the reality is, when you're put into a circumstance where you're forcing two drivers, it's not going to go well.
Mm.
The buggy does not ride smoothly. And so the boy, to outward appearances, you have this idyllic, like your dad is the superhero crab fisherman on the Bering Sea. He's like deadliest catch guy. And your mom's this awesome super mom. But what the reality is, when they come home together, there's two drivers of the buggy, and shit goes
Mm. Yeah.
terribly wrong. And he
Okay.
is aware of all this thing. And so he knows, yeah, go have a great job. Go get your great job, then come home and have a terrible home life. How happy are you going to be? I see the truth.
Yeah.
So he's a reflection of this undercurrent of
Mm.
it's
Wow.
not really as idyllic as you think it is.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like you think, like, hey, man, you got brought up in this, you got all the privilege, right? Why are you so miserable? Well, when you realize it doesn't really matter if you got the money, it doesn't really matter if you have a status job, it doesn't matter if your mom's, people still are real people. They have 10 terrible moments in their life with each other, and they're going to do terrible things, and it's going to reverberate down the line. And this is what we live, every single one of us. I guess
Yeah.
there could be some people who have perfect lives. I don't think it exists, but the reality is a ton of dark shit happens to the Leave It to Beaver family. Like this
Yeah.
idyllic 50s family is not
Right.
real. It's a veneer, right? There's humanity
Yeah.
underneath is always there. Now, I'm not
Yeah.
saying you can't look at, a concept of we can strive for something. It's not about not striving for perfection or not striving for better. It's not about that. It's acknowledging that people live long and complicated lives. And I think that's what the art is trying to expose.
Yeah. And I think it does just what you've written so far does a great job of that. So whether, wherever it goes from here, I think we'll just continue to
Thank,
like tell that. So yeah, bravo.
thank you.
All right, so physically, so back to the oldest son. So physically, he could be seen as his father's son, but enveloped by a layer of blubber and a sallow pallor of skin brought forth from countless hours locked inside a room, playing video games and watching TV. Friendless, he shies away from social encounters. As a nocturnal animal, hides from the midday sun. In his own mind, he feels powerless to unleash the inner alpha, forever repressed by external forces outside of his control, as well as insurmountable expectations from his father and society as a whole. He loves from afar, but feels he cannot be loved. Yeah, tragic. There's some like heartbreaking stuff in there too. So his POV scene, like after gathering the appropriate gear from his father's crabbing supplies, fireworks, rope, crab cages, survival suit, and mini respirator, eye protection, etc., he lays the trap with himself as the bait to lure the remaining horde of pumpkinheads to their destruction. Having to sit still while the most horrifying wave of attackers bear down on him with courage unparalleled, he waits until the rope pulls tight and beheads all the pumpkinheads surrounding him. Their severed heads will begin popping off like fireworks all around in a spasm of gore fit for finale. Well done there. Then
Thank you.
reunited with his last remaining relative, the popular twin, he looks out at their island, now finally free from the Pumpkinhead's threat. But turning to the east, he can see the true scope of humanity's plight as the PHs overwhelm and lay waste to the mainland. So, yeah, season finale, big
Yep.
cliffhanger.
Yep.
It's like, like the that sort of I can't think of like the word, but the temporary relief. It's like, oh yeah, it's over. But
It's
then
like
kind of like
there's so
the
so
camera
many of
pans
those.
up and it's like, oh no, it's not. It's just starting or whatever.
Well, Lord of the Rings is like it's just an epic, right?
Yeah,
You talk about these
yeah,
epic journeys where you're
yeah,
cherishing your achievements, and then every time you reset and you have to look back, I have so much further to go, and that's exactly it.
mm, yeah,
It could be an epic journey. I only have the real details of season one, so everything past that is 100%. Who knows? I have no idea, but
yeah.
it is set up for like I do have some kind of cliffhangers there for like what would you do next. So I don't know the answer to that, but thank you for pointing out that it is both a complete narrative arc in and of itself, but also a setup for future
Yeah,
journeys. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. All right, next character, popular twin. So there's twins, age 17, high school seniors, female identical twins. So the popular twin, she is the life of the party and the queen bee of her social circle. Just coming into her own at 16 years old, she is beginning to grasp her power, both over her female peers as well as boys and men who desire her attention. She is enthralled with the natural gifts she's been given to be the center of attention. Her good fortune and outgoing personality have essentially stunted her higher intellectual development, although not a dimwit at all. Foregoing intellectual pursuits and self-reliance, she basks in the light of those who put her atop a pedestal, with her father's love and affection being paramount. Her mother senses the pitfalls of this path she's on, knowing too well how fleeting a young woman's power may be and how reliant upon others she will become if she does not grow her independence from them. So is there like was the mom sort of the popular uh high school girl?
There
Is
you
there
go.
like
So
a
there's, well, either she was or she recognized the pitfall by
yeah,
seeing what happens when the homecoming queen turns into, and I'm not disparaging waitresses, but let's just say the waitress at the coffee shop for the next 20 years. You know what I'm saying?
sure, yeah.
And so
That
she
the
met
key being like that, like growing the independence from the people praising, and pouring the attention and stuff.
the girl is on Easy Street. She
Yeah,
got a ticket to ride Easy Street, and the mom realizes that ticket will wear out someday. And if
yeah,
you don't use
yeah,
your time now, you're going to be an empty shell. Because the reality is, as much as everybody will bend in your favor now, when you're in newly in bloom as a young woman, they're going to, culturally speaking, they're going to drop you when you hit the wall, whatever that means, and you're not considered the young woman anymore.
Yeah.
So it bites both ways, but it's so tricky because you get all the benefit up on the front side and all the cost on the back side. And mom is the one who's seen it. I don't think she's the one who fell into that trap. She might be equivalent. Maybe she would have fallen in the trap, but she made her way out, or she saw someone else go into the trap and not make it out. But yes, she's trying to impart wisdom, and that's the crux of their friction. So dad is away. When he comes back, it's like I'm not from a divorced family, but let's just say you're from a divorced family, and one parent tries to out buy your love from the other parent.
Yeah.
Right. So you could have this
thing. Yeah.
Thank you. A competition thing. So you're going to have this intrinsic competition between dad, who's gone most of the time, but he's working to make the money, and mom, who's actually here all the time. And when dad comes back, everybody wants to see dad and he gets all the good stuff, but mom is stuck with all the real stuff 24/7, 365, all the not fun stuff and the stuff you don't tell dad because you don't want to upset him because he's only back for 6 months or whatever. You see what I'm getting at?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so the tension ends up being a distillation of all the negative aspects of parenthood onto mom's shoulders. Mom has to be the tough guy. Mom has to be the adult. Mom has to be the one that says no. There's a movie out there, by the way. I can't remember what it's called. My kids love this, where they have a yes day or something like that. And the background is, by the way, it's a recent movie. I didn't base this off this movie, but the mom is like a hard ass. And I think maybe the dad is kind of super flexible and makes the mom on the spot or something. I can't remember. But I think they have like a yes day where the kids get to do a bunch of yes things. And it's very funny. And you see what happens when everybody gets a yes day. And it's like a reality check. I mean, it's much less reality than what I'm talking about. But I'll have to find the reference and share it with you. But it's a good family film in that you go through. It's almost like the kids are real people is my point. Like the way they play the kids in that movie. They come off as like real characters with real personalities and identities and stuff. So what I see is a young woman, 16, 17, and she's, at tension with her mom, controlling her. But mom, obviously knows the right thing.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah. Let me know if you because that movie doesn't sound familiar at all, but it does sound interesting. So if you
I'll have to recall that. I think it's Jennifer Garner is the. I might be conflating two together. By the way, I think but she might be the mom in both. I think it's Jennifer Garner, and then there's one with her and Steve Carell, and there's one with her and another guy. I think. And I'm probably confusing both of these together somehow. But anyway, there's some kid movie. I'll have to find it. My apologies. So I don't have good recollection of that.
Oh, all good. All right. So back to Popular Twin. So the head cheerleader and prom queen can become a shadow of herself before age 21 if life's gifts intersect with the universe's bad breaks. Again, just what you just said. An unwise love affair of drug/alcohol dependency have ruined many a small town beauty queen's chances of lifelong success. Mom's guidance is not appreciated by her teenage daughter who knows it all, and this is a stress on their relationship. Yeah, so good dynamic there. And then her POV scene, she will survive. She will get her POV scene as she assists older brother with the final battle to vanquish the Pumpkinheads from the island. She will be driving the truck that the rope is attached to off a cliff, only managing to bail from the vehicle at the last instant. The truck will draw the rope tight and provide the bite to the necks of the swarming PHs attacking her brother. Yeah. Action, love it. It sounds very like, high intensity, yeah.
I think the description of the actual thing, it's reminiscent now, and I can't remember. It must be a callback to this. It's exactly the same thing as, and you read the whole thing, right? So I think you understand. Like, she has to climb out of the truck and get onto the line and hold on to it and be kind of pulled up. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
Yeah.
So, like, it's reminiscent of Matrix with Neo and Trinity,
yes.
where she's on the helicopter and she's going over the edge.
Yeah.
And so they trust each other in this certain kind of a way where, I mean, this is pre-planned. It's not the same as the roof scene with the helicopter, but it's reminiscent of that, where they're connected by this line. And it's, a metaphorical symbol of this, we're on the same team, because that's the whole point of being on the team, is you're connected, whether you made a mistake or you did it right. Whatever happens to one happens to both. You're both going to be safe, or you're both going to fall together. And that's the point, is that's the moment of triumph, is if you can stay connected, even if you're down to the last two. It took two people to make this thing work. It took her and her brother, but they stayed connected, and they had faith in each other, trust. And that's what wins the day. And that's what it's about, is trust in your team.
Yeah, I love it. I love the same team thing, so yeah. All right, next character, the smart twin. So again, this identical female twin sister of the popular one. So the smart twin is everything her popular sister is not. She is introverted and intellectual, eschewing popularity for individualism and personal growth. Her sights are set on the horizon, knowing how quickly the candle of youth burns. Again, smart twin. She is emotionally mature for her age and finds the company of her peers tiresome. Always with a dog-eared classic novel in the pocket of her army fatigue jacket, she plays the stereotypical outcast nerd to a T. Friendless but self-confident, she has a more mature relationship and her parents and older. She has a more mature relationship with her parents and older sibling. With her father's devotion aimed squarely on her radiant twin sister, she earns Dad's respect as much as his fondness. Her relationship with her mother is strong and their bond tight, without being outwardly evident. Pride in her self-reliance protects her from the social slings and arrows pointed at her for being the uncool twin. She bides her time to the day when she can leave the small town confines of the island and blaze a trail on the path to the big city. I'm going to read the scene and then we'll talk about her. So her POV scene, faced with a lose-lose dilemma, she and her twin are caught in a situation where both cannot escape death. She is the one who realizes that if a sacrifice is not made, both will die. To prevent this tragedy, she makes a mad dash through the pumpkin heads to draw them away. She runs the gauntlet to a cliff's edge and then leaps in a swan dive to her death below, bringing a multitude of PHs with her. Her twin manages to escape directly from the heroic act of her self-sacrifice. So is this, it's not the prisoner's dilemma, but there's like a thought experiment thing here where just right? Like, what is it?
The thought
just
experiment
recognizing.
The thought experiment is about evolution, in that they're identical twins. So in the sense of this is the weird part. You're dealing with like yin yang personality traits, but they're literally genetically identical. They are the same thing. And so the interest is how things that are they feel everything exactly the same way. They're the same exact kind of dog. Exactly. It's not just like a golden retriever and a German shepherd. They're kind of the same. No, they're both exactly the same kind of dog. But one has one personality type and the other has a completely different. They have different strategies and they have different. So back to Prisoner's Dilemma. So you're right in that the smart twin realizes this is essentially a zero-sum game. And if we have, nobody else knows the background yet, but they're about to be swarmed. They're in a tree, I believe, and they're about to be swarmed to the point where neither will ever be able to escape. But in the moment before they're completely swarmed, there is an opportunity for at least one of them to become the rabbit and be chased away. Chase them away, because they don't know that both of them are in the tree. So if you become the rabbit, now the dilemma is that the smart twin, so to speak, by the way, they're identical genetically. So, smart twin is it's not like saying he's got a genetic gift. It's not about that. It's her perspective is the smart twin. She analyzes the situation and realizes my twin is not able to analyze this like I am. She's not going to be the one that's going to be the rabbit. If I don't be the rabbit, there will not be a rabbit. We're all going to die. So I have to be the rabbit. So she twists it because she's hyper individualistic and she's analytical. She knows the importance of strategy and tactics, and she understands how powerful understanding is and knowledge. And so that's what her gift is to see the beauty in not the superficial, not the cultural, not the prom queen, societal thing. She's like looking for deep truth, like the classics. She reads the classics. Okay. She wants to know. She wants to know, she wants to know Charles Dickens and Dostoevsky, and she wants to know these classical overarching themes. And anyway, the point is, when pressed, she does the right thing. She knows she's dead either way. Why not take the choice that is, yes, I'm dead, but I can spare my sister. Save my sister. And by the way, my sister is a form of me. So it's symbolic of saving herself because they're identical twins. But the part of her that has to kill itself is the part that recognizes I have a choice here. The other one will not recognize I have a choice. So she sacrifices herself and draws away the pumpkin heads so that her sister may live, and knowing her sister could not do the same for her.
This might be like the most complex character for me, because I think it's the toughest one. Like I want her to survive, like of all of them.
If it were fair, she lives. Yeah, if it were fair, she lives. You're right. That's exactly the point. It's not fair. Exactly.
Well, and the fact that like you have this, the way you describe it, like being twins, like, dude, chef's kiss, bro. like just that alone, it's like, oh man, it's not just a sibling, it's like the genetic copy type thing.
Correct. That's all that.
Wow,
that's
man.
100% with. I love the fact that you pick up on her as being probably the most interesting character with the whole arc, because I agree with that, and she's very symbolic of like my alter ego, like what I project is what I think the cool thing would be. She's what I would think is cool.
Yeah.
And she's the one
go ahead.
I say, and she's the one that I mean, multiple people have to make multiple choices, but she makes the heroic choice.
I want to know.
Do you remember when I said hero is like the trolley problem, but you put yourself on the track?
Oh, right. Yes.
So she sees there is a solution for the trolley problem, but to pull the lever is not to be the dissociated one making the decision. It's pulling the lever so the train goes onto your track. She's that one. That's the embodiment of the hero, is pulling the lever to change the trolley experiment. So you're the one.
Wow. It seems like it's got to be that way, but I just have to know, is there a chance that she doesn't die like the way it shows? Like it seems that way, and then miraculously, or does that kind of ruin the whole thing? Because I don't want her to die, man.
I hadn't even thought about it. I never even thought about it. I would say because of the nature of the plot device, meaning you don't get to do like the fake out they die, except for, I mean, once you know the light goes black. So let me set up to answer technically. The way the scene goes at the end of each episode is there becomes this weird like montage moment where it's not in normal speed, it's not in normal camera feel. It feels weird, like you're in a dream state and there's music playing, like a song that plays out to the credits. And so once this thing hits, meaning once you get into this last phase of each episode, you know the shit's going down right now, and whatever happens is just going to happen. There's no explanation, there's no understanding, but what's going to happen is that's the end. For that character, that's their end. So in that regard, I would think it would be too much of a switcheroo, just because I specifically remove the ability. Because what'll happen is, well, I guess I don't know. It was nothing's fixed.
I don't want to change your mind. Like, yeah, to be fair, like I'm just sharing. Like, I love this character.
Maybe season 2, because here's the thing. The way I see it, the order of how long each one lasts is important. Meaning, as the narrative, Dad goes first because so what I'm saying is there's like a competition in how far you go. So imagine you're playing Survivor. Only one person gets to be the survivor at the end of the game, right? There's only one winner.
Yeah.
But as you go out, if you're the first one voted out, you feel much worse than the one who was in the final two.
Yeah.
So there's something about the tactics and strategy of each character and how far they make it that's important in the mix. So I think that's part of it. And so what I'm getting at is in the season, I don't see her coming back, but I could see if it went into further seasons, she would be the perfect one to actually go onto the island or off the island, excuse me, and try to make, because this is like how it sets up at the end is what do you do now? Let's say you clear the island of Pumpkinheads. Now you have a choice. I can stay in safety, but I'm confined. Or I can venture into harm and try to be a help to everybody else and help humanity. And so there's going to be this tension. I like the idea of reintroducing her, but you know what? I mean, here's the thing. Conceptually, you don't see her die. Like she jumps off.
That's what I was going to say. She jumps off a cliff, right? And then you just assume, right? And
hold on one second. Let me go into this other thing, because the original POV concept, when I talk about the camera goes weird, what I'm talking about is it's like out of the eyes of the person.
Yeah.
So when I say it goes to POV, the last minute or whatever of each episode, you're literally seeing out of the eyes of the person.
Yeah.
So if you know what I'm talking about, the camera, you have like a camera 1, a camera 2, and then like a wide shot. So you could do over 1, over 2, and then the third angle is like both in this, over one guy's shoulder, over the other guy's shoulder, and then a wide shot of both of them on the screen at the same time. What I'm saying is there's another one which is through the eyes. Like the camera goes down and you see the chest and the arms and the legs.
Yes, right.
Okay, so in the last minute, you are literally in the eyes, the camera eye view, I think is what it's called, first person perspective.
Yeah.
And so she's jumping off. You're going to see what she sees is my point. You're not going to see what actually happens. So there is a chance for what you're talking about to occur, where she will go swan dive, maybe look over her shoulder, see the things like, lemming style flying off the cliff after her, then look back down to the water and then close her eyes. I don't know. It sounds cool, man.
Because it's
like it.
Yeah. Because it's not like the tide is out. Well, I was going to say, it's not like the tide is out and she's landing in jagged rocks and there's no way. Like she's landing in water. So
yes.
So maybe, right? Yeah. Hey, I'll sleep better just knowing there's a maybe.
How about this? I think you could work in to the fact that there is this part called Deception Pass.
You
see where I'm going with that?
Yeah. Dude. Wow.
So look up Deception Pass.
That's a real place.
That is a real place. By the way, the tide there is so. We talked about this right before the pod, but the concept of having a real geographical place where it's like an inlet where it goes between multiple little islands and it makes this weird twisty, like almost like a, what do you call those things that are like not a riptide, but whirlpool. It makes like a whirlpool effect. So it'd be really cool to have the Pumpkinhead suck down that whirlpool and have the girl manage to get out of it. That would be a great solution. Jumps on the bridge. The Pumpkinheads, because here's the thing with water, they cannot explode onto her. They get sucked down, which eliminates their ability to taint her. Because there's going to be so many. It's literally like a chunk of the island. Like they start this. So that when I'm talking about later in the progression of the characters, the early characters have to fight the ones that are deceptive. The later characters have to fight the mob. So they're going to have like dozens of them all out running after you constantly, like in the zombie flicks, like they're chasing you. So she's going to bring over like, dozens and dozens of these creatures. That would be a tremendous like visual impact that she's eliminating, because you have to clear the island is the whole point. You've got to somehow clear the island in order to stop the infection. Until you clear the island, you're vulnerable to become a Pumpkinhead. Anyway, I'm open to it. I think it's a good idea. I've never really considered season 2, and we haven't even brought up your other idea, which we should talk maybe after we do the whole concept of introducing your breaking the fourth wall concept of the character. Feel what's happening. I think that's a very cool idea, if not a totally separate idea, maybe incorporated into this, but I still like that too. I think it's very fascinating.
Yeah.
I think it'd be something like with the aliens, like once you get back and you can look back and like, how did the alien spores happen and stuff like that? That would be a cool perspective, but
yeah. Wow. And I am looking at Google Maps image of Deception Pass, and like, man, it's like chilling to think
it's
about.
perfect, right? It's perfect.
Yeah, dude. And the name, I mean, come on. And that's like one of those things like you show, don't tell, like, you don't spell that out. You let people, make that connection in their head as a viewer, and then the compression, the stuff that you talked about is like one day you meet somebody, you talk about it, they're like, and plus it's such a pass. It's like, oh, I know, right? And like, just
that's a great idea. Yeah,
awesome.
leave it unsaid. Yeah, but the symbolism is there. It's like what do you call it? A Easter egg.
Yeah.
Leaving little
Right.
Easter eggs in the
exactly.
the video games or movies or something. Yeah.
Yep. All right. There's 2 more characters. I say we go through these characters, and then see where. I think we're like about an hour and a half anyway. So like, but let's do these last 2
Let's wrap
characters.
on
Okay.
these. Yeah, let's wrap on these 2. I think that's perfect.
Okay, cool. So youngest son, age 11 to 13, 7th to 9th grade. Youngest son is the baby of the family, a sweet boy brought up by a loving mom, and charismatic, if often unavailable, father whom he idolizes. Although too early to tell at 10 years old, he appears to be the true heir of his father's legacy. Again, dynamic with the oldest son there. Filling dad's large shoes comes naturally to the boy, and these great expectations promote his growth as opposed to stifling it. Liked by all, young and old, his future seems bright and filled with unlimited possibilities. Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Protected.
He's so vulnerable. He's just too vulnerable.
Yeah.
And the reality of the reality of life is when there's a traumatic population-wide event, young and old, they don't do well. They just don't.
Yeah. POV scene, protected by mom to the bitter end. He is set free, quote, set free rather than forced to endure what his mother believes is the inevitable and imminent demise at the hands of a swarm of pumpkinheads. So, yeah, going back to the mom's thing, she takes him out so that he doesn't have to go through it.
But remember, in the POV, you're the camera eye view.
It's going to go black.
Child,
it's just going to go black. Yeah.
It's just going to go black. But it's not just going to go black. It's going to go black where he doesn't see anything coming. So it's coming from behind. So the mom is literally behind him, outside of the camera view, and it just goes black because you know what happens when a bullet goes through your brain. But the kids.
Well, I don't know, but I don't think anyone does, right? Like,
fair.
Well, no,
fair.
No, it's not a bullet, but what is the guy's name who had the railroad spike?
Oh, yes.
Or
severed his hemispheres. Yeah, severed his hemispheres.
It was
I don't remember his
starts
name,
with an E. Gage, Elias Gage, or some shit like that.
That's right. Yeah, I think it's Gage. You're right. Yep.
Anyway,
yes, right through his chin, right under his chin, right to the top of his head, I think.
Phineas Gage? Anyway, sorry, yeah. I don't know.
No, good recall. That's exactly right. So you can get your brain messed with, but here's what happens with the gun. The bullet sends a shockwave that ripples through your brain, just obliterating. So even if you could pass through, I think that the thing with the Phineas guy, he was a railroad worker. He had a spike blown through his head at the speed of black powder or something. Like black powder went off, and like an old timey TNT explosion, something weird like that.
Right.
So it went through his head, but it didn't go through at 5,000 feet per second or whatever, obliterating him. But so unfortunately, the little boy has got no chance here. He's gonna get whatever the pistol mom has in the closet, because you hide a pistol in your closet. Now you're backed into your closet, and so the way I saw it was, mom's holding the boy. He's like, they're huddled in the back corner. You've got the closet, and it's just like it's all rumbling, like that they're just trying to claw their way in. They know you're in there. They're just forcing their way in, and you're trapped and you're surrounded. There's no hope. There's no realistic hope. She has no idea. She's not waiting for anybody. She doesn't know there's anybody out there. She has no expectation of being saved. She's not trying to hold on for the cavalry. She doesn't even know there's a cavalry coming. This is the unfortunate position she gets put in. And then what happens, your POV is going to be the terror of the child trapped, but he's not going to go through the moment. Because when you do the POV of the dad, like you're going to literally be torn to pieces and like vomited on and all this crazy stuff. Because when they first come after, there is like this concept of when the storm first strikes, the spores coming out. Like that very first round is like a special accelerated thing. It's like you get the full blast of the spore, and it kind of like, they don't turn into pumpkin heads exactly, but they behave abnormally, meaning they don't start as like this weak thing. Anyway, the very first volley of the pumpkin heads, the very first people get exposed by the space spores, they come out and are like a surprising attack on Dad. But you're going to see this horrific thing from Dad's point of view. It's at a party essentially. So in the beginning of this party, or at the end of this party, excuse me. And so the point is, he's going to go through this thing. You're going to see what it's like, but not from a side view or above view, but like as if you're seeing through the eyes of the person who's, being killed that episode. So that's the shock thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. All right. Last character, Grandma. Age late 60s. Grandma, maternal. Grandma is both an asset and a liability. She is wise and strong, dependable and full of grace and poise. Having 3 generations under one roof can be a blessing and a curse. Her daughter is the mistress of the house, yet Grandma taught her everything she knows. Quiet and understanding, Grandma comforts her grandchildren as only one can who has held each shortly after birth. Seen each take their first wobbly steps, wiped away tears of leaving home for the first day of school. Yeah. Yet she is a reminder of loss. She has lost her husband too soon. He was a commercial fisherman like her son-in-law. Interesting tie-in. This constant reminder to Mom of the burden a widow can become haunts her. Grandma is also competition for control of the whip hand, always looking over her shoulder, always able to passive aggressively intervene in Mom's decision-making process. This is a natural tension between the two. Grandma is stalwart in her defense of doing this and that the right way, the old school way that things must be done. That's also very interesting to me. When Dad is home from work, she is relegated to a tertiary position in the adult hierarchy, and this is a constant cause of tension. And her POV scene, just poor Grandma, he wrote. I don't mean to laugh, but it's like, poor Grandma. It is the natural order of things that the weak and sick are usually the first to go. She will be sacrificed by the oldest son so that he may survive while. Not sure if she should go willingly or not. To give the young and strong a chance to live is altruistic and may provide deeper understanding as to why we maintain humans beyond their reproductive years. Very deep. Unwillingly sacrificed is the more realistic and likely scenario. Yeah, like, wow, that there's a whole bunch there that's like deep. You've mentioned this, I know at least once or twice in these episodes about the idea of like planting trees in which the shade you won't ever experience,
Yes.
So there's a lot, I think, of that in this character, and a lot of
possibilities
in here.
You have a possibility of 2 ways. You have I like that. I had not considered it as such, but that's a very eloquent compression of it, the planting trees. So voluntarily knowing that the end of the world is nigh, you're not going to get a retirement, Social Security is not going to come through for you, etc. Maybe just like the reality of the smart twin realizing I've got to do this thing to save us. Grandma could do the same. The flip side is what I see it as is it's analogous to the 2 twins, but the older brother realizes, I don't know if you've heard this, when chased by bears, if you're out in a group, you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than the slowest person there.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And that's the concept I see, is that they are somehow I can't remember if it was in a building or if they're going through, I can't remember the exact how I wrote it up, but the way I see it is the oldest son and grandma have been isolated from each, like it fractures, like depending upon where you are of the night of this first party, like everybody fractures up, and it goes from like a cohesive group where everybody's together into a bunch of different journeys, different paths. And so the oldest son and grandma are together. And the way I see it is at the moment of truth, meaning we're going to bring grandma with us. We're going to do everything for grandma. But at the moment of truth is like, we can't run and carry grandma at the same time. It just can't happen. So we're all going to die, or grandma's going to be the bait unwillingly, and unwittingly, or I can't see it. I don't know. I would take feedback on which way sounds the most honest or the most profitable for the storytelling. I don't know, but I'm stuck on that.
Yeah, I wish I had something right now. I could see something coming to me, eventually. But right now, yeah, it's a tough one to crack. There's something there.
It's something there. It's one of those two paths. I just can't see it though, because I want to see the grandma character evolve. Like how she acts, I think will dictate whether she is holding on till the end and he like kicks her legs out, so to speak, and makes her be the bait, or if she does something heroic of her own, maybe as a foreshadowing for the smart twin girl to pull off her miracle thing. Maybe there's a generational thing where we realize grandma is like the smart twin or something like that.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah, a lot of like unspoken stuff just from looks, right? They look at each
Yes.
other and you can tell that they're like exchanging, similar ideas and stuff, but like unspoken things. I think there's some pretty
Maybe
good stuff in there.
taste of literature. They like the same books. They like the same music, something like that. They have a path. And here's the thing, then that makes a nice dovetail with the mom identifying with the popular twin or focusing on the popular twin.
Yeah, right.
With her path, because she knows that path, whereas grandma may know the other path of the smart twin or something.
Right. You ever hear about that? How some people will say like things skip generations?
Yes.
Right. It's that thing. So
100%.
I don't know if,
and it's back to evolution though, where there is a lineage thing where you can have like this type of dog, it feels a certain kind of way. It doesn't dictate the behavior, but when you understand how a thing feels and it feels based on its biology, that is real. And to ignore that, I think, is ignoring the truth.
Yeah.
But that's the play, is you have this mixture of people who share how they feel, yet they choose different paths at different moments, or maybe the same path. And I think that's what's an interesting tension, is to see the echoing of behavior down through the lineage. It's all like archetypal, obviously. It's not just unique to these people, but it's something that is an interesting play, and I'm trying to get there. It is an evolutionary play. It is about passing down a code, meaning what type of animal you are. There is something there about passing on this code, but the reality is the code is only really good for a certain environment, and as the environment changes, it makes funky things happen with what was once like this code is good and strong and this code is bad and weak. But when the environment changes, so let me pull back a little bit on this grandma older son thing where he is helped by her. The flip side tension is that he does an unspeakable act that one would think of you could never come back from, but he turns out to be the hero. So that's the other side, is I kind of wanted him to be looked at essentially at the beginning under a prejudiced view, like opposite of rose-colored glasses, so shit-colored glasses, where you look at him and he looks like he's a waste, he's worthless, he's an anchor, he's all in the worst possible way, like he's holding us down, holding us back. And the reality is, what I was going to try to portray is he ends up being the one who does what has to be done, like it or not. Now, dad does too, but dad dies in the first volley. Yeah. So the son would have died in the first volley too if he weren't this way. But he learns that, hey, I've got to take some action, because sitting around, I'm just going to be, you can't just passively get your way out of this situation. You have to actively get out of this. One of those is to make a really tough decision. By really tough, I mean like just the worst, like to actually kill your grandma to save yourself. It's unthinkable. It's literally unthinkable. But what if the alternative is you both die? So what is that? What is that? So it's like that fucking tension, man. It's so painful because you know it. But that's what I like. I like being forced into the reality of a really tough decision. Now it's not real, of course, but to try to put someone into like, what would I do if I suspend my disbelief and I'm empathizing with this character? How would I see it? Because at the end, if you look backwards from the end, he can't save his other sister and rid the island of the pumpkin heads if he's dead. There's no redemption. So part of redemption is doing whatever it takes to get to the point of redeeming yourself. And there's something dirty about that. But the reality of the law of the jungle, so to speak, it's one thing to be from the winner's chair saying we should fight this thing with, these rules. We're going to wear gloves, no hit below the belt. When someone falls down, we give them an 8 count. And, if they say they're done, we stop the fight. Like that only really works when you're in a society of we're doing this for entertainment purposes, right? I'm describing boxing, of course. We're boxing for entertainment purposes. We have a rule set. We're doing this, people are paying to do this and we're voluntarily doing it. And I'm saying that isn't always the way. In the big scheme of life, that is so minimalistically the way. It's almost never the case. It's just the case in the recent time. But the case of all of human history and all of history of all life on this planet has been one where there is nothing for fun. It's not just a game. It's life or death. And you don't get a second shot. Like when the fight is over, you're over. That's the whole thing of life is literally you get one chance every time. Every day is one chance on this thing. If you encounter someone else who wants your shit, even if you don't want their shit, you just want to go alone. You just want to be left alone. Anytime you encounter an other, and that's an animal or a human or whatever, that could be it. That could literally be it. So that's what this is an idea of, going back to a life or death choice. So now how would you feel about this guy if he kills his grandma? Let's say he's running next to grandma and he kicks her in the leg, breaks her ankle.
Oh my God.
And just keeps on running, right? Just like I'm talking like you're literally huffing and puffing. You've been doing a half mile carrying her. And you realize I cannot do it any longer. We're never going to make it. You put her down and then you step on her leg and then you keep on running for your life because your adrenaline is so pumping through and no words are spoken. You don't feel bad. It just happened. I'm just saying, what if that happens? I don't know. And then that guy, but here's the thing, that guy ends up being the guy who, what it reminds me of? Saving Private Ryan. Where Saving Private Ryan, the little nerdy translator guy is sitting on the stairs when the soldier goes up the stairs and kills his friend who's upstairs, and he's supposed to be guarding the thing. And then the soldier walks down the stairs. And my point is, at the end, he ends up shooting the guy who he released. So, I don't know if you remember this twist. So he had released one of the guys that they'd captured, and then that guy ended up killing one of his friends. And then at the end, when the German guy lets him live for some reason, he just killed this guy, and he walks right by him on the stairs, seeing him cowering. He's a coward, right? He's like, this is a coward. I'm not going to kill this coward. And then gives that guy a chance then to capture and then shoot the guy who was the POW that he let go in the beginning. It's such a fucked up thing, is my point. Like that fucked up nature of like, you let him live and he turned around and killed your buddy. But then someone on his team let you live and you got to turn around and kill that guy again.
It's brutal, man.
So letting someone live, is it the right thing to do? Well, if they're the enemy and they're going to come around and kill you later on, or some of your friend, so it puts you in this moral ambiguity where you don't want to shoot a prisoner, you don't want to shoot an unarmed person. There's supposed to be rules, but my point is the rule at the end of the day is if you get killed, all your rules are gone. It doesn't matter. Like if you get killed, then the rules are after your death. Anyway, you can't just rely upon the rule system in the big picture of things. understanding humanity, where we've come from. The rule set is so recently emergent as to be, it's a really good software update, but it doesn't reach our primal hardware layer, to stretch a metaphor. It's
that's interesting.
Such a recent firmware update to be like, we can have so much more if we all cooperate as opposed to killing each other. It's better for everybody at the end of the day. Whereas the scarcity mindset, so let's say back in the hunter-gatherer times, well, if I don't kill this buffalo, say we both shoot the buffalo with an arrow. You want the buffalo for your clan, I want the buffalo for my clan. Well, winter starts tomorrow. One of us is getting the buffalo, the other one starves this winter. There's a real deal there. Like, it makes a big difference who gets that buffalo. Like, we both shot him. Like, there is no fair. There's no judge after the fact. Someone's going to watch their kid starve, because guess what? Dad doesn't starve first. He's the heaviest. The kids starve first.
Yeah.
Then the mom, or then grandma, then the mom, then dad. Dad's the last to starve, unfortunately. So when dad's out there trying to get that buffalo home and he sees the other guy trying to get the buffalo to his house, dad's got to make a choice. I'm going to kill this guy because I'm not going to watch my kid starve. I don't care if I have to be brutal. I don't care if I have to be sneaky. I don't care if I have to do it dirty. I am not going to watch my children starve this winter, period. Yeah. Then I decide what happens next. But it always works backwards from, I will not allow this thing to happen. And so when we get the luxury of, no one's in a life or death situation on a daily basis anymore, thankfully, obviously.
I know, man. That's what I was going to say. I'm really glad we don't live in times like that, right?
Totally. But we've evolved, John. We've evolved to live in times like that. And this is my point. I'm not saying anything about reality. It's about observing truth of nature, observing how we got to where we're at. If we don't have an understanding of where we're at, we cannot plan our way out of it.
Yeah.
Meaning to increase our stability, increase our cohesion, increase our compatibility and our cooperativeness. There's a lot of strength in the story of why we're not law of the jungle anymore. But if it discounts the feelings that we have that kept us alive or got us through the tough winters or got us through these bottlenecks of evolutionary points, we're lying to ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay? We are the most dangerous creatures on this planet. We are the most vicious. We are the most deadly. We are the most dangerous by far. And to lie to ourselves that we are not this thing is blind spotting, is putting ourselves in a blind spot to think that we are Leave It to Beaver. Whatever the mom and dad's name, I can't even remember. June and
Wally.
Wally and the Beeve, but the Cleavers, June and something Cleaver or whatever. Like, that is a fiction. It's a narrative fiction.
Yeah.
That doesn't have any animal in it. There's just no reality of the animal in that thing. It just doesn't depict a reality of the way it is to be a human. I just don't think it does. And what I'm getting at is the real good art is trying to get to that layer. Now, that's entertainment, maybe not art. So maybe I'm trying to compare apples and oranges. I'm not trying to disparage 1950s TV. I loved I watched that shit all the time, dude.
Yeah.
So I'm from the, I grew up, in the 80s. So I'm from the 70s, born in the 70s. So I consumed all that stuff. I understand the idyllic nature of, it's like just eating donuts all the time. It's fucking delicious, but hardly is it nutritious, right? So the nutrition, the full balance comes from seeing the pressures. Like, to get to the Leave It to Beaver, you have to overcome the biological underpinnings of being an animal.
Wow.
And to respect, every generation we reinvent the facade. But the frame of the building is always the same. The plumbing is the same. The wiring is the same. Right? Everything, the foundation. We're not. This goes back to Plato, by the way. The concept of an ideal example of a chair versus very specific examples of chairs or whatever. There's an ideal concept of a thing, but the reality is each one is separate and individual. I think that's what we're playing with. We're playing with, you can have your own, meaning it's useful to everybody, but it's useful in a different way to everybody.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much, there's just so much in there, man. It's so heavy.
It's very heavy. Unfortunately, can I ask you, what, now that you've got a read through of the characters and a one-on-one, what do you think the medium, is it a novel? Is it a graphic novel? Is it a animation? Is it a cartoon? Is it a drama with actors? Is it AI? Is it, is it headset 3-dimensional, like virtual reality? What do you, is it a song? Is it a poem? Like, what is this thing? What would you,
Yeah.
how would you document this? In what form of art?
I think, because one of the key pieces is this whole point of view thing. I mean, I don't know how feasible it would be, but it seems like it would be a really awesome like VR experience, meaning like that, particularly that moment, like you said, the end of every episode is sort of like this shift where now you're, as the viewer, you're in that point of view of that character who's about to die or whatever.
What if I said that I literally created it just for that idea, and I literally created it such that you could turn your head in that last minute and see it the way you want to see it?
Yeah.
Meaning it's 360 rendered, and you could feel what it feels like, because you don't have to look, you have to look through the character's eyes, but you get to look where that is in the
Yeah.
scene. That's how I made that thing. Is, I don't think it's possible, but that's the dream. And for you to see that, that gives me freaking chills, and like I'm spooked right now that you see that the same way, where the VR experience in that
Yeah.
last minute with the sound blasting, and you got the tunes playing, and you're about to fade out, and crazy shit's happening, and all of a sudden, like, because here's the thing, you're sitting there for let's say 40 minutes, 50 minutes of the episode, and you're watching it like a TV, meaning you could turn your head, but you're always seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
But in that last minute, everything's rendered, and now you don't get a walk around or whatever. But if you turn your head,
Right.
you see the real. So you might see, if you turn your head to the left, you might see a different experience of the show than I did, because I turned my head to the right.
Right. Yeah, man. It's like there's a fresh, like unique thing that I don't think really exists already. So that's awesome. Especially this day and age where there's so much, out there. I don't know that this particular thing, like, there was the Sega Dreamcast, or maybe it was Sega CD. One of the like early Sega video game consoles had this game called, oh shit, I can't remember what it's called. Night Watch or something, but it was a game. It was a video game, but like all the scenes were like acted out. It was like real actors, and it was sort of like choose your own adventure. And this was in like the 90s. And I feel like what you're, describing, what we're talking about here is like an evolution of that,
Interesting. It reminds me of there was a video game, you could only play it in arcades, meaning it was a stand-up. It was like knights and goblins or something, or dragons, and it would be like a cartoon, like a rendered cartoon,
Yeah,
like
Dragon Lance? No,
Dragon Quest, maybe Dragon Quest. Is that
yeah.
right? And you would play it, and it's like a move, but it's a cartoon movie. It wasn't real people, but it was like it wouldn't move like a normal cartoon.
Yeah.
And I know what you're talking about, that difference of feeling, like it's like the uncanny valley kind of feeling, right? That weirdness, like, you know what I mean? Like that
Dragon's Lair. I think it's Dragon's
Dragon's Lair.
Lair. But yeah.
Yeah, that game was so
Yeah.
cool, because you'd go left, and the character would move left, but he's like literally walking. Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't just a robotic thing. He was like, and then you like attack, and it wasn't just like a robotic attack. It was like he took a step, and he like did a little, and then he attacked, like a real cool dramatic attack.
Yeah.
So I think playing the game meaning the TV show, in a VR standpoint would be so revolutionary. I can imagine replays, because you would want to replay that episode, that last minute,
Right.
to see it from a different angle. So we'd have a desire to consume it multiple times, just to get the details, just to get all the little Easter eggs, and to get
Yes.
like, maybe that's another thing. Maybe like to get to the Easter egg of Deception Pass, like you have to have the VR moment where you just look and like the sign is over to the right and down at the bottom, and if you turn your head at just the right thing as she's running,
you can see it. Yeah,
dude, that's really that's fucking good.
I love
dude.
it, man.
I can see so much exploit, because here's the idea: working in, like, the only part I worked in was just the last minute of this experience, but now the way you're talking about, I can see, like, if it really was to go VR, there's so much more we could do to customize the uniqueness of the storytelling with the benefits of the tech of VR.
Yeah.
Like, why save it just for that last little minute? I don't know. It's really a cool idea, actually. I don't know what the feasibility is of VR. Maybe if we do this for 5 years, in 5 years, VR is, like a cell phone or something. I mean, I think there is going to be something that pops that will bust the VR open to wide scale consumption. It's going to be like a video game or a movie that's going to drive everybody to want to do VR, because they want to see the game or the movie that everybody's talking about.
I agree. I think there is something here that we're on like the cusp of, like you said, in 5 years or something, it'll be like, hey, remember we came up with that or whatever.
Well, Walking Dead starts as a comic book, dude.
Right.
Like, it's not that hard to make a comic book. Like, we could make, with AI and generative prompts and Save the Cat, we could literally make a thing.
Yeah.
Like, as a now, it's not going to be VR. This is why I fear that backing into a lot of structure that requires VR will prevent the open-endedness. That's why my question to you, I thought, was like, this is a great conversation, is how would you do this? Yeah. So we both agree VR, but how would you, now let me ask you a second question. Now, working backwards from VR, how are you going to get there?
Right. I mean, like, if we think about like means, right? Like how, like, what could we actually do? Like, we can write it. We could definitely like, if it is like the Save the Cat software and it's like a screenplay, like that seems like realistic for us. Whereas like making a TV show, well, I don't know, dude. Like, I don't, we'd have to find actors and all that. Like, that seems like,
I think you need a storyboard.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so we could write it, we could storyboard it. Like, I think there is like a lot of like things we could actually do,
Because here's the thing: if we could get to the script and storyboard, then we could, like, Kickstarter, or there has to be some kind of a way to get it out there, such that there's a third-party analysis of whether it's good or bad, and if it's good objectively, aside from our subjective opinion, then they'll fund it.
Exactly.
And I think so. Working backwards, obviously, take off the table. Netflix, take off the table. VR, take off the table. Production. Let's start with screenplay, Save the Cat, storyboard,
right,
and then do a Kickstarter or something like that.
Yeah,
or
that all
something
seems like realistic, anyways.
Well, here's my thing: like, if you put the work into making the story, then actually documenting it in a professional way, not just like, I have to tell you the story, you got to waste 3 hours sitting with me so I can pitch my story to you. Once you actually have a thing, like, I don't know, go back to Reddit, go onto the story, screenwriter subreddit. I don't know if there is such a thing. There's got to be a subreddit for everything. So go to the screenwriter subreddit, go to, post it on YouTube, fucking, right? Like, post the fucking thing and start, like, I know, I think it starts with the idea and then making it some kind of reality, some kind of consumable. No, that's precisely it. Because what we want to do is take whatever opportunity presents itself. Meaning, if someone were to step up and say, hey, we do cartoons or we do animation, could we do this? Yes. Someone says, hey, we do novels, could we do this? It's yes. Could we, right? Anything that they say, would we be able to do this? It would just be a yes. But you have to start with something. So I think that's what we have, is if we can start with a concept, storyboard, with, by the way, AI is going to be the thing. I didn't have AI when I had this idea. And if you go back to my original thing, like, don't do this, by the way. But if you go back to my original subreddit and look at the wiki and the sidebar, and what I'm looking for are artists to make a storyboard of this verbal idea. And that was years ago. And now the thing is, we could do this with AI so easily, making the storyboard scenes. We can describe these scenes and make them really professional level with Save the Cat. As far as, I don't know how to write a screenplay. I can write an idea, but I don't know how to turn that into, like, enter scene left, he walks through, I don't know how to write that shit up. You know what I'm saying? Like, actually, but there is a way people do that, where they set the scene and then they say this person walks in, and then there's dialogue and direction, action, or there's some way to professionalize a screenplay. It is an art of itself, is just making a screenplay.
Right.
And so interpreting the idea, I think, to screenplay and then to storyboard will allow for it to be novelized or graphically novelized, or, let's not even talk about it, but it should be a Netflix series. I mean, honestly, is what it should be. It should be like a series of 12 episodes or whatever, 20 episodes.
Yeah. Small moves, man. We get, start somewhere, right? I think this stuff is like, really, I think it is really helpful. I'm really glad that you had this idea that, like, I could just read through it and we just talk, through it. Cause, it's, you've done a brilliant job, like, documenting already, like, because this is just 2 entries we went through this episode, but, how many total are there? Like
6,
4, 6?
Something like that.
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So, I mean, there's at least, like, I would say probably at least 2 more episodes just of reading through the stuff you've written and doing this kind of, like, approach of it. And then, small moves, iterating, curating, like, the next thing,
Well, I've been waiting 7, 8 years, so I'm patient.
Yeah. Right on.
This one has marinated. This one is, because look, man, the truest thing there is there's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And it's just, if you're on a good idea and you can't get anything to come of it, you got to sit on it and wait for its time to come. That's the reality. So I'm waiting for, obviously your collaboration, additional collaboration. This is not a 2-man project. It's probably expand if it has any hope. So hopefully the concept is to put something beautiful out there and see if anybody can recognize the beauty. If they can't, either they're blind or it wasn't as beautiful as I thought it was. So, so I got to put it out there. It's about being vulnerable. So it starts with, you and me being vulnerable with the podcast. Why are we sharing this? Because it's creative.
Yeah.
This is how we wouldn't have gotten to this point without making the podcast so that we could talk about this thing.
Yeah.
As a random thing. I mean, this is amongst literally dozens of topic ideas we already have, and I have dozens more. I'm sure you have dozens more. So the interesting part is going to be how to, in my opinion, how to triage a multitude of intellectual paths. Because we've had other ideas. I talked to you last week about the advertising idea. There's this idea. There's many things that are going on simultaneously, and you have to be careful. I have to be careful. Everybody should, about dividing themselves so many ways that you can't get anything completed.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, there's
start stopping and or stop starting and start stopping.
We should do that though. No, seriously, bring that to the game. We should maybe have an episode on that. Of what to do at this point with a multitude of options, how to construct with a systematic way these things that you've been taught. Specifically, I'd love to hear more on them, but there's a regimented, structured way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should embrace that before we let the chaos just consume us. Because I feel like I have tons of ideas, and then I get to a chaotic point where it's too many plates spinning, too much, and everything drops.
Right.
And then I got to restart. So I would love to have a meeting of the minds, a podcast episode on what you are talking about there. Because I know we talked about it a couple months ago, but I'd love a deep dive.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds good to me. I think we could probably wrap this one up.
Yep.
for now. But yeah, this week we'll decide, like, I labeled this round one, and I didn't put we knew there was going to be 3 kind of episodes about like the consciousness stuff. Like this one's like open ended, So round
Yes.
one, done. But like, yeah. So if next week we go round 2, or if we go into other things, but I can see us coming back to this like frequently, So yeah. So again, brilliant job putting. I'll put a link. I'm assuming you don't mind, right? Like I can put a link to your website with all this stuff in the episode, just for anyone listening who wants to kind of start looking at it. That's cool.
Yes. Let's play a joke and pretend somebody's listening to us. And if you are,
Right.
go to my website. And
Yes,
how
I
about
know,
this?
right?
The first person that actually does it and does the contact me and sends me something, I will literally buy you a present. I will literally buy
Yeah,
you a present. I will send you an actual physical. I'm not saying it's expensive or something fancy,
sure.
but
It'll be worth your while.
if anybody's actually going to listen to this, now family and friends are not allowed to participate in
Right.
this. I'm
Right.
talking an honest to goodness,
Random person.
raffle. Random person out there, someone in the universe. You listen to me, and I will ship domestically. I will not ship international, just so it's out there. Okay, I'm not going to do like $500 in shipping because it's
Yeah.
in Australia or something like that. Even though I love my Australian bros. Okay, I love my Australian bros, but I'm not shipping anything to Australia. All right, no, seriously though, somebody just go to my website if anybody's out there, and just say, hey, I was the one. Am I the first one or whatever?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I don't think I think this bluff will never be called, but let's just go for it.
Yeah. No, I'm for it. So yeah. Well, kick ass. Awesome. Work today. I think it is work. It's good work. I love it.
Good work
So
today.
thank you for sharing this with me. Appreciate it. And yeah.
I feel so good doing it. It's a really great conversation. You take it seriously and you ask amazing questions and you have a great point of view. It really brings it out to have the conversation. It's one thing to type it all up and just know it's just sitting out there. It's another thing to make it live and breathe, and that's talking about it.
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, yeah, we'll call it good. So thanks for anybody listening. See you next time. And yeah, we'll chat, Bob. So
Cheers.
Later.
Hey.
hey.